Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Charge from the EV Geek podcast. We're your hosts, Sebastian and Joel, and today, November 22nd, 2024, we've got a handful of topics to discuss, such as a delay for the Ram 1500 REV, VinFast is actually delivering another vehicle in the US, the refreshed EV6 is finally here, and then our big story is the new three-row crossover from Hyundai. So, without further ado, let's plug in and get started. So, our first topic of the night is probably the most exciting one we have on here, is that Hyundai has revealed the Ioniq 9. So, in my opinion, this new model is an absolute banger, as the youth say nowadays. I had to get a kick out of Joel there, because
my son used the exact same word today on the way home, so I know how it feels.
So first things first, the Ioniq 9 is a new electric three-row crossover from Hyundai, and it's being built on their eGMP platform. So this is the same platform that underpins the EV9 and the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6 and some upcoming vehicles, yada, yada, yada. The Ioniq 9, I mean, it's basically the EV9, but honestly, it's a bit of a step up in a lot of ways. So every version of the Ioniq 9 is expected to have at least 300 miles of range, with an expected max of 335 miles on the rear-wheel drive models. And it gets this range because it has a 110 kilowatt-hour battery pack, versus the EV9 having I think it's a 98 kilowatt-hour battery pack, so it's an extra 12 kilowatt-hours. And even with the bigger pack, they're still quoting a 10 to 80% time of 24 minutes. And they're able to do this because I believe the nominal voltage on the 110 kilowatt hour pack is like 630 volts compared to the 550 volts that the EV9 does. So it's the same, taking in the same number of amps, right? But you're getting more kilowatts because the voltage is higher. And I mean, the exterior to me is pretty slick. I like how it has kind of a continuous curve along the top. It doesn't ever like actually flatten out. And then you've got, your very pixel design on the front with the kind of pixel design on the back. From what I've kind of been read and seen, it has more cargo space than the R1S, even though it's smaller. It is a little bit bigger than the EV9, but not by much. But it is still smaller than like R1S, but apparently has more cargo space, which is interesting. Speaking of just continuing on the interior, there's a bunch of like unique little, I won't say gimmick because gimmick has a negative connotation, but there's a lot of just neat little, quirks and features that are inside, including the ability to, for the second row on some models, to swivel to face the third row. And the Ioniq 9 will feature what Hyundai is calling their relaxation seats, which will be able to massage you, and the first and second rows will be able to fully recline, meaning that 4 people in the car could take a nap at the same time, I guess. There's also some little things like the center console up front is able to slide back and forth for easier access to the rear seat passengers, and just a bunch of little things. It's also cool to note the Ioniq 9, because it's a higher voltage pack, has more power than the EV9 does, even though it's using the same motors. Just having more power on hand, it can get more juice out of it. But yeah, I think this thing looks awesome. I hope it really does really well. Also, huge note, I don't know how I didn't write it down. It's being assembled here in the States. They're going to be building it in Georgia, and assuming that, well, who knows what's happening, but if the tax credit stays around, it should qualify for it. Assuming that it meets MSRP cap, which I believe it probably will, although they have not announced official pricing on it yet. But yeah, I think this thing looks really good. It's exciting to see Hyundai has come out with another model, and it's important to note too, they're calling it the Ioniq 9, even though the concept was originally the Ioniq 7, and the belief is it's 9, that way they have room to put 2 more models in between it and Ioniq 6. So they have room for maybe more crossovers.
So we like I say, I don't know if you were on here yet, but I kind of did a little preview about this when it first came out. I believe they announced it in April or May. I think they announced it, and I did a little short episode on, not too long, 3 or 4 minutes, just kind of announced, because it was just concept back then. So to our listeners, Sebastian and I got to drive a model. Spent a couple hours with a EV9 last week, and we really liked the EV9. We had the land version. You'll see that video come out in a couple weeks, but we really liked that version. I mean, we were surprised, especially after we had just driven an i5 and and all that luxury getting into the EV9, but we really liked it. But this car just looks more luxurious than the EV9. You know, I love, if you look at the screen right now, I love the wheels on this version. So I love those spoke wheels. It kind of has that Lincoln Navigator look to it or something like that. So it looks really cool. It's not too far off from the concept images that they showed us. But like you said, it's in every which way, it's a tad bit better than the EV9. And I think Hyundai is kind of they kind of brand themselves as just a tad bit better than Kia. So, yeah. So for example, the drag coefficient, I think is like, 0.27, and I think it's like 0.28, 0.29 in the EV9. You do get the better mileage. They're saying all models are going to be in the 300s. So we should see that. And I think they said pricing is going to start in the 50s. So that comparable to EV9. Now, whether or not the low end starts in the 50s or not, we'll have to see, or if the high end is in the 50s. So that's going to be curious. But I figured that's going to be anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000, $80,000 for this. Very similar to what the EV9 is. I think you can find some EV9s like 47, 48 now with discounts. But yeah, this screams luxury. I liked it. And if you want a really cool, like full review of this video, we suggest going over to Out of Spec Review with our buddy Jordan and watching kind of like the full review, because he's got the seat at the LA Auto Show. But if you don't want to watch for 30 minutes, you can just listen to us here for a few. Yeah. So I like it. I kind of like that they've tweaked on some of the things that we saw in the EV9 that needed to be tweaked on. I don't think that swivel seat is allowed in the US. I think there's something against that. So that may just be for,
who knows?
Japanese models. I think the EV9 had that feature too, and they got rid of it. Now they did say the drag efficiency would go down if they could get away with not having the outside side mirrors. And they did show some models with the inside side mirrors, but we'll see what happens and if effectively that's actually allowed or not. But yeah, this is an awesome car. It screams luxury. It would be a great road trip vehicle to take across the country. It is coming with NACS. So they did announce that it will have NACS support only. So, and I think you said, maybe in the EV9, I don't know where the port's going to be on this. I know it's going to be back left or back right, but hopefully they move all their ports to the Tesla side, as we call it, which is the driver's side.
So far, everything they've shown is it'll be on rear passenger side is what they've shown so far.
Now we're going to take up 2 spots at the Tesla supercharger station. So
maybe not, because I mean it's on that very far corner. You could maybe make it stretch. It's not like it's set further back. And
a lot of the newer stations are centered. So, and I know the cords are a lot longer in the V3, so you probably can make it work. But some of the older V3s, you may not be able to. It's tough. They don't have to park like you and your Bolt and take up 2 spots.
Hey now.
So yeah, pretty cool. I like the pixelated lights and things like that. So awesome job. And I agree with you. I think they're this. You're right. This originally was called the Ioniq 7, but I'm thinking they're setting up to where they could have maybe a smaller crossover SUV, maybe something similar to like the Kia Soul or something that they could put in there, or a larger sedan that maybe is the size of like a Model S or something that they could kind of squeeze in there as well. But yeah, very cool. Congratulations, Hyundai. Glad you're building it here. And if they don't qualify for the tax credit, Kia and Hyundai offered stupid rebates anyway, so they'll probably just throw those in there as well.
Yep. Moving on, the Ram 1500 REV. REV. I don't know if they want you to say REV or if they want you to spell it out, to be completely honest with you. It has been
the REV.
Delayed. So Stellantis has delayed the launch of the all-electric Ram 1500 REV. Originally planned to launch by the end of 2024, the truck has now been delayed to the first half of 2025. Stellantis claims they have delayed the launch because they, quote, don't want to take risks. That is a direct quote from the CEO. Not sure what that means. To recap, the Ram 1500 REV is an all-electric pickup truck that can be had with either a 168 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is huge, or a 229 kilowatt-hour battery pack, with the smaller pack being claimed at 350 miles of range and the big pack being claimed at 500 miles of range.
Woo!
Also being delayed is the new Ram 1500 Ram Charger, which is a range-extended EV that has a 92 kilowatt-hour battery, which is gigantic for a hybrid, and then it's paired with a V6 generator. So both of these vehicles are pretty neat to me. It kind of seems to seem to be delayed, especially because I'm not 100% sure what the real reasoning is, other than it possibly just being that Stellantis is having some hard times right now. And they're already trying to roll out the new Charger, and they're trying to roll out the new Wagoneer, and maybe they don't feel like they can stress themselves by also rolling out a third EV at the same time. I'm not 100% certain, but it's a bummer to anytime you hear them say, "Hey, we're delaying this new model."
Mm-hmm.
What we need is more models, right? So, nonetheless, it'll come eventually, hopefully.
Yeah, it is kind of disappointing. I mean, I understand Ram. They need to get this right. Like, there's no room. They are now years behind. What Tesla and Rivian and Ford and Chevy have done with their trucks. So they're last to the game here if you don't count Toyota. And they've had tough times lately. I mean, their cars are sitting on the lots for their gas cars are sitting on the lots for long periods of time, and they're just not moving.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to get this right. So, but I'm with you. I'm not sure if they're delaying this to get it right, or are they looking into the crystal ball and kind of worried about the EV tax credit and maybe this car not qualifying for it, and maybe, hey, maybe there's a way for us to get costs down so we don't have to worry about the EV tax credit. So it is a little odd considering this was first announced in 2023. So now we're talking 2025 now that it won't come out. So we're talking 2 years after it was possibly announced. I mean, but it looks like a cool car. I mean, it looks like a Ram. It's kind of like what they did with the Lighting. It looks like a Ram pickup truck. It doesn't look anything different than that. So, which I'm glad. I'm glad the pickup trucks look like the pickup trucks. That's what people want. Some people don't like this avalanche look that GM is doing, which for me it's fine. But yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, but hopefully they get their act together and we get this out in the next 6 or 8 months. So, yep.
Yeah. Keeping on the subject of automakers that we're not sure if they will survive, VinFast has started U.S. deliveries of the VF9. So VinFast has officially delivered its first VF9s in the U.S., and they did it in a special ceremony at its headquarters in L.A., where they shot off fireworks and did a bunch of hoopla to deliver a handful of vehicles. The VF9 is a 3-row crossover with a claimed range of around 300 miles. It's somewhere between 291 and 330, depending on what trim level, blah, 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 you get. Look-wise, honestly, I think it looks pretty good. It has a pretty striking exterior design. I mean, and the interior is pretty clean. That said, we don't know if it's going to have the same growing pains that the VF8 did, because the VF8 had some questionable tech glitches and weird material choices and build quality issues, etc. And I don't know how much they've done to actually remedy most of that. And now they're bringing out a new model, and who knows if this new model will have the same issues. And the VF9 also carries a steep price tag. It was starting at $71,000. But this was interesting to me, and I didn't know this. VinFast is giving a 10-year, 125,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty. So not just your battery pack, but anything on the car. I think that's the longest bumper-to-bumper warranty of like any automaker currently. So I mean, I guess credit where it's due, right?
Yeah, so VinFast, I believe, does this for all their cars. I believe they also do for the VF8 too as well. Here's my issue with VinFast. So 3-row SUV. So now you're competing with Rivian, EV9. I don't count Model X. That's not a 3-row. It is a 3-row, but 3-row is not practical. So you're competing with Rivian, EV9, now Ioniq 9. And am I leaving anyone else out? No, I don't think I am. So
I don't think
just
so.
look at those 3. Why would you pick a VF9 over those 3? I don't see why you would. It's the same. Actually, it's more. You could probably get. I know for a fact. Like, what was the sticker price on that EV9 Land that you said? It's like 57.
Oh, the one we drove. Yeah, the one we drove after incentives was like 57. Yeah.
So 57. So 57. You're getting. That was next to the GT. So that model we drove was next to the GT line. That's as high as you get unless you went to the GT line, and it was nice. It was decked out. You got probably 300 miles of range on it. Had everything you needed. You're not going to have an issue getting it fixed because it's Kia. There's a Kia dealership everywhere. So that's my problem with VinFast is they're late to the game. And I mean, it's a cool looking car, but I don't know if I trust them. I got trust issues with VinFast. We've seen all the issues that, Francie has had with her VF8 and software issues and just things going crazy. And the radio just stopped working or sound like it was possessed. So I don't know about this one. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. Is this going to go down the same road as Fisker? I mean, I don't know. I'd pick any of those three. I'd pick any of those other three vehicles any time of day.
You pick a Fisker? You'd pick a Fisker over
Not a Fisker, but I'd pick a
Okay.
Rivian, a Hyundai, or a Kia over it.
Sorry, you said Fisker, and so I was like, wait a minute. You
Now,
would
if
pick
someone
an
wants
actual dead automaker
Now, if
versus.
someone wants to give me a Fisker for free, you know, I'll take that. But yeah,
I mean, they're basically giving them away at this point.
and I think it says something about your company when you have a warranty for that long. That's saying something to someone, you know, that why do I need such a long bumper to bumper warranty on a car? Just a little shady.
But on the flip
a
side,
little sus, like the kids would say.
yeah, but on the flip
sus.
side, it also, I mean, it has an air of I stand behind my product to it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yep.
there's two sides of every coin, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Play devil's advocate. Yes, makes for a fun podcast.
Yeah. Moving on, this next one I just kind of thought was cool. There's not really a huge lot of news to it yet, and it's a car that doesn't actually exist yet, but I still thought it was cool. The Mercedes CLA EV is going to have both a CCS and a NACS port. So I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen other automakers consider a similar approach, but also I'm 100% not surprised. Because I believe when I was reading about this, a Mercedes executive just was like, "Yeah, we don't want to fool with adapters. That's not that we're above that. We're too good for adapters."
Yep.
So yeah, it's cool to me to see that it's going to have this, NACS and CCS port, and they're going to be under the same charge door. So like, it's not going to be like one side of the car for the other side of the car. It's going to be just right there. That said, the CLA EV has also got some pretty cool things that are coming with it. It's going to be an 800 volt class vehicle, and Mercedes-Benz is claiming a peak charge speed of 320 kilowatt, which is pretty respectable. And if it has a charge curve anywhere similar to the current Mercedes-Benz stuff that kind of sits at 200 kilowatts until 80%, I mean, hopefully that's a pretty dang stout charge on that thing. And I mean, it sounds like it. They're claiming 186 miles can be added in 10 minutes. Which is Taycan level. I mean, that's impressive. And like the Taycan, the CLA EV is also going to have a 2-speed transmission. Although, whereas the Taycan is doing a 2-speed transmission to be as fast as possible for that sportiness, Mercedes is looking at it as a way to squeeze as much efficiency as possible out of those electric motors. Which, I mean, I still think is pretty cool. I don't know of any other EVs other than Taycan that have a 2-speed transmission on an EV.
I can't think of one either right now.
Yeah, so I just thought it was neat.
I don't think any of the BMWs have that. No, yeah, I think that I'm waiting for we're wrong, and put in the show notes and prove us wrong. We like being proved wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, not much to say about this. I'm surprised more manufacturers aren't doing this while we make this whole transition from NACS to CCS. And going back to Hyundai, I wish this was something that they would do, because Hyundais are going to be able to charge on Tesla Supercharge station starting January 15th, my anniversary. But there's not many out there that's going to support that high volt charging. So if we had options for both for the Kia, that would be something cool. Even if it's just something you just offer on your higher trims, just to get people to buy up for it. But yeah, I wish that some of those cars like that are the 800 volt cars that are having issues on the V3s with Tesla, I think that would have been a good solution. But kudos to Mercedes for at least we know one thing about this car, and that is that it's going to have 2. But I like that they're not going to fool with adapters and have to worry about all that. Just put 2 on there. Think about it, for the price you're going to have to sell and give an adapter for, maybe the exact same cost it is to put an extra outlet on, an extra charge port on one of these cars.
Right. Yeah. Moving on, the refreshed EV6 has been officially revealed for the US market. So we have previously seen the refreshed EV6 before, but the details were scarce on what we were going to actually get in the United States. But we now know. So for 2025, you're getting some tweaks to the exterior styling, some tweaks to the interior, some mechanical changes, and then some more stuff. So for starters, the EV6 is going to get the same battery packs that are being found in the refreshed Ioniq 5. So the base battery is now 63 kilowatt hours, and the long-range battery, which is what most of them are, is 84 kilowatt hours. So this is an improvement of about 7 kilowatt hours on both packs. The GT trim is also getting a bump in power, and some of the goodies previously shown off on the Ioniq 5N, such as the ability to simulate a gearbox, which is a gimmick, but it sounds like a pretty cool gimmick, and I want to try it. So, On the interior, they've done some minor tweaks like a new steering wheel, some seat tweaks, as well as doing increased sound deadening, which should help with NVH on the vehicle. And then going back to the exterior, the EV6 is going to be NACS native. And interestingly, Kia has moved the charge port from the passenger side to the driver's side on the
Hold
rear.
on, does that deserve a round of applause? Can I find the round of applause for that? And here we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Kia, for listening. All right, move on.
However, it's going to be on the driver's side, and this one's weird to me, and I haven't quite, and actually I know why, but it's weird. It will not be on the driver's side on the GT model. It will be on the passenger side of the GT model. And they didn't say this is the reason, but this is the reason why. The EV6 is going to be built in Georgia. With the new EV9 and Ioniq 9 and all that, except for the GT model, which will still be built in Korea. And in Korea, it makes sense for the charge port to be on the passenger side of the vehicle. So they don't want to have two toolings in Korea to build a driver side, passenger side charge port. So they didn't say that's the reason, but I mean, that's the reason. Come on.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, though, that the GT trim is going to be built in Korea, and foreshadowing, this isn't the only vehicle they're doing this on.
So yeah, so if you look at this picture we have on the screen right now, so like I said, we drove an EV9 last week. We drove an EV9 and EV6. So back to the EV9. This screen on this picture and the displays looks like the EV9. So we actually had a chance to drive both last week and review both the EV6 and EV9. And the way that screen was displayed, the actual layout of it was different. And that's one of the first things we noticed about it. So I'm glad they're kind of having this kind of unitary approach where now this display will now look like what's in the EV9. So they're all kind of similar. Whoops. And you can see that it's more of a rectangular display too, as what we saw in the EV9 as well. So yeah, I'm liking this. Looking at this, the middle console doesn't change much. That's what looks like my middle console in my car. And Kia and Hyundai are firm that they want buttons. They want to make sure that we have buttons. So you're going to get buttons. Even if you have a screen, you're going to get buttons too. So I'm excited about this. So Kia always seems to tweak their model. I mean, they just tweaked the EV6, made a minor adjustments to the headlights and stuff last year. So we're talking 3-4 years now, one little mini refresh and now a little bit bigger refresh. So I'm glad Kia is listening to their customers and keep trying to improve their electric vehicles. So yeah, and I like how the steering wheel looks now too. That's a really cool looking steering wheel as compared to the current. So kudos to Kia and Hyundai for getting that right.
Yep. And sticking with Kia, they have announced the EV9 GT.
Woo!
So the GT is, of course, the performance. I'm doing that in air quotes because it's a 3-row SUV, and no matter how hard you try, a actual 3-row SUV is not ever going to be a performance SUV. But I digress.
Yep.
So the EV9
You're not going
GT,
0 to 60 in 2 seconds in this thing.
Right. The EV9 GT is a new performance trim of the 3-row crossover. So the GT trim, which is not to be confused with the GT line, which is, confusing, but I digress. In the GT trim, you're bumping power up to 501 horsepower, which the GT line only has 379, and the 0 to 60 is 4.3 seconds, which I mean is still pretty dang quick for a 3-row SUV. We're not arguing that. We're going to talk about some more stuff they've done to the vehicle later. That's really I don't think this is ever going to get used, but I digress.
Yep.
Because the GT is also getting an electronically controlled suspension, so that the driver can, adjust the feel of the ride depending on drive mode, stiffer, softer, whatever. And the GT is getting an electronically limited slip differential to, I guess, really help you make them corners in your boat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I'm happy to see them do it, but it's a boat. Come on now.
It is. We drove one. It drives like a boat.
I mean, it drove really well. It drove really smooth. The suspension was honestly great on the land, except for if you give it gas, you can feel the weight because the whole nose goes whoop.
Yep. And it's so quiet too. I remember that. You could hear a pin drop in that car when we were driving. It was so quiet.
But, oh yeah. The GT
Yeah.
is also going to get some design touches as well. You know, the brake calipers are bright green. There's green interior accents. It gets a slightly different steering wheel. It gets sporty bolstered seats that hug you super tight. You know, what every mom hauler has
Yep.
needs.
What every soccer mom needs.
I
Yes.
mean, look at all that green in that picture.
I know. Look at all that green. Yep. The
And
seats look cool. I like the seats.
like the Ioniq 5N in the new EV6 GT, you're going to be able to do the virtual gear shift, so you can sit there and row gears in your electric 3-row SUV.
While you're picking the kids up from practice, yes.
So Kia is expecting to launch this trim for the 2026 model year, and interestingly, again, it is going to be manufactured in Korea rather than Georgia, like the rest of the EV9s currently being built.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just think it's interesting that both GT cars now for Kia are being built in Korea instead of the US. I wonder what the decision is on that.
I'm guessing they're thinking I guess probably one, they don't want to, clog up one of their lines with something that's probably not going to sell a lot in quantity. And also, with the price, it may not qualify for the EV tax credit. I mean, they're saying 80,000. So if it's not qualifying for the tax credit, then
yeah, I guess there's no real benefit, right?
But let me ask this: would you pick this or the VinFast? Same price,
well, yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
I mean, there's no question you would pick this over the VinFast VF9 every day. So yeah. So not much to say about this because we kind of talked about it. I like it. I will probably never get to drive one unless we get another one from one of our dealers here to drive. But I like it. It's got that fake engine noise, which I think we kind of heard on the other ones too as well. That fake engine noise. Looking at the interior, looks great. Doesn't look like they changed much of the interior. Looks about the same. Especially maybe the lighting's a little different and things like that. But yeah, I like it. Good job, Kia. Constantly, like I said, constantly tweaking and updating your cars to compete. And another great 3-row SUV to have on the market because that seems to be where everyone's going because that's where we don't have a lot of cars in the market. So.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I know it probably sounded like I was ragging on it being a 3-row SUV. They're trying so hard to make sporty. I would still drive one, and I would love to drive one hard. So,
oh, yes.
Because I bet it's fun to throw a boat around like that. But at the end of the day, it's a boat, right?
Get this on the F1 track down in Austin and see what we can do with it. Yes.
Yeah, let's take it down to Dakota and throw it and do what the guy was telling us and just like hitting it hard. And
yeah, just go to the corners real hard. I mean, we took a Polestar on the track. Why not take this? We took a Polestar. Was it a 3 or 4? Would we take out the track? The 3. We took that out on the track. Let's get this one out on the track too. So yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, that is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for plugging into the Friday Charge. Be sure to subscribe to the EV Geek podcast on YouTube and tap the notification icon to be notified about new releases. We have some great new content, including our road trip to Austin, Texas for Electrify Expo. Go check that out. It's a long video, but I promise it's interesting. As well as we had an interview with the director of Global Earth Day. So this is the foundation that created Earth Day, which is pretty neat, exciting.
Pretty cool, yep.
We will not be doing a news episode next week due to Thanksgiving holiday. But don't worry, as we plan to release 3 episodes next week, documenting some of the awesome things we saw at Electrify Expo. We're going to have an episode showing off all the cool stuff Ford did before. We're going to have an interview with the CEO of Electrify Expo talking about, what goes into putting on an event like that, as well as a interview with Mod Bikes, a company that makes really cool e-bikes and e-bike sidecars and e-bike accessories, and super neat stuff. So if you have any thoughts or questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So long, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode of the Friday Charge.